somewhat rainy and miserable January day. It's not even snowing, honestly. But the mist is somewhat pretty. I was tempted by the weather to bake something, and I was trying to resist and be healthy and all that. But then I saw on Instagram that it's Tolkien's birthday, and I have just been starting my reread of The Hobbit, which is our book club read this month. And at the very beginning, there's a tea party, and they're having like buttered scones. And the fact that it's Tolkien's birthday, I was like, that's it. We're baking the scones. These are actually pumpkin scones. I have been meaning to make them in the fall, and I just never got around to it. So I still had a can of pumpkin puree, and I thought I'll just make them now. And they're very delicious. That first chapter of The Hobbit is just so evocative. I'm not sure exactly how you could read about this unexpected party and not want to bake something or cook something up yourself, because Bilbo's larder is just impressively stocked for dozens of dwarves to show up on his step, and they have a wonderful tea party. I made plenty of mini scones, so if any dwarves and a wizard come along looking for adventure, the ambiance and atmosphere that Tolkien creates is just so magical. By some curious chance one morning long ago, in the quiet of the world, when there was less noise and more green, and the hobbits were still numerous and prosperous, and Bilbo Baggins was standing at his door after breakfast, smoking an enormous long wooden pipe that reached nearly down to his woolly toes, neatly brushed, Gandalf came by. Gandalf, if you had heard only a quarter of what I have heard about him, and I have only heard very little of all there is to hear, you would be prepared for any sort of remarkable tale. Tales and adventures sprouted up all over the place wherever he went in the most extraordinary fashion. I love hearing about Bilbo's mother, Belladonna Took, too. I feel like if I ever, another kitten ever shows up on my doorstep or I adopt another cat, Belladonna Took would be a fun a fun name. It's been a little while since I last reread The Hobbit, so I'm very excited to revisit it. We were rewatching a lot of the Lord of the Rings movies over Christmas, so I feel like I'm very much in a Tolkien mood. And then I do also have my beautiful volumes of the poet Cooper here, and I did start reading them a little bit, but they are on my TBR for Febregency. So I thought I would share that with you guys. I've been making my list. So since we've already mentioned Cooper, I suppose we might as well start with the poetry prompt to read a Regency era poet. I did read some Cooper for Febregency last year and really loved it. There were a lot of pearls of wisdom and things to relate to that I just thought were so beautiful. And actually, as I was paging through this, there was one poem that I thought I would read now because it seemed so appropriate. It's called To the Nightingale, which the author heard sing on New Year's Day back in 1792. Whence is it that amazed I hear from yonder withered spray, this foremost morn of all the year, the melody of May? And why, since thousands would be proud of such a favour shown, am I selected from the crowd to witness it alone? Singest thou, sweet Philomel, to me, for that I also long have practised in the groves like thee, though not like thee in song? Or singest thou rather under force of some divine command, commissioned to presage a course of happier days at hand? Thrice welcome then, for many a long and joyless year have I, as thou today, put forth my song beneath a wintry sky. But thee no wintry skies can harm, who only needs to sing to make even January charm, and every season spring. Hopefully, lots of auspicious things to come in the year 2023, as Cooper was looking forward to in the year 1792. There are a couple other poets, however, that I would love to get to. One author who I didn't quite make it to last Febregency was Sir Walter Scott, and he is such a wonderful figure, such a wonderful author and writer from the Regency era. Jane Austen mentions his poetry in Persuasion. Also, Marianne is a big fan of it in Sense and Sensibility. So I'm thinking I will try to read one of his poetry works, maybe The Lady of the Lake, because I haven't read that one. I have read Marmion. And I have read Ivanhoe. His fiction works are also excellent and would be a very good pick for Febregency, but they're a little bit longer and a little bit more dense. They take you back to medieval times, of course, knights. the history of Scotland. I believe The Lady of the Lake takes place in Scotland. I think Sir Walter Scott was one of the first to really pioneer the historical fiction genre. So The Lady of the Lake should be a fun, poetic way to dip into that. And then one other poet who I came across as I was just sort of trying to find inspiration and ideas was Thomas Moore. He was apparently an Irish poet, but he has a bit of a mixed reputation these days. He used to be called kind of the national bard because his lyrical ballads, I believe they were, Irish melodies, he set some of them to music. And when I was looking at them, some of them I recognized. I'm pretty sure I've heard them sung. So even today, they're somewhat popular, but they're collected as a poetry volume. And apparently they do have this sort of pathos of the Irish plight, because of course the Irish were horribly oppressed by the British for centuries. As time went on, however, apparently people felt that Moore was maybe a little too complacent or a little too sympathetic to the British and didn't go far enough. So I'm kind of interested to just read him for myself and see what I think. So our next prompt is to read a Regency era play. I've decided that this year I am going to go ahead and go for Lover's Vows by Elizabeth Inchbald. This is the play that the Mansfield set acts in Mansfield Park, and I just think it'd be really fun to know the context of it. Last Febregency, I finished up The Mysteries of Udolpho, which is very prominent in Northanger Abbey, and it was really fun, you know, to have read it and to have the additional context for Northanger Abbey. So I think it will be really fun to read that for myself and kind of know what it is that the characters are acting. But then I would also like to do another Sheridan. I'd like to do The Rivals, which apparently Austen and her family themselves, when she lived at Seventon, she had many brothers, only one sister, but I think, was it 5 or 6 brothers? And they acted plays. So I think it'd be fun to read that one. Last year, I came across this great scholarly piece of about Jane Austen and plays that were performed at Seventon, plays that she would have seen. So I'll make sure I link that in the description again, because I feel like that would be a great place to go to get some inspiration of plays to read for the Febregency prompt. Or make sure you check out the other hosts. Tristan in the Classics, in his announcement video, had some excellent Regency era playwright suggestions. And of course, Christy and Jennifer Brooks. If you haven't yet, make sure you check out their channels and check out their videos. So our next prompt is the nonfiction prompt. Last year, I read a couple of essays by Samuel Johnson from The Idler, which Jane Austen absolutely loved Samuel Johnson. So I thought that was really fun, and I'd like to read at least a couple. Again, they're quite short. But then I was also thinking I would love to read a collection of letters because that's kind of our theme of Febregency this year. I was just sort of Googling and trying to decide what or whose letters I would want to read. And apparently Lord Byron had some letters. I was starting to dip into some on Project Gutenberg, and he's writing about travel in England, and he says something about how the packet was waiting for the wind and other necessities. So I think he would be fun to read his letters, or Napoleon's letters. Now I know, of course, Napoleon's not British, he's French, but the Napoleonic Wars were going on during the Regency era, and you know, the Navy, the British Navy, was a really big and important force. So it could be kind of fascinating to read Napoleon's letters. If not during Febregency, then maybe at some other time. I've been watching this fun show called Great Canal Journeys, British Canal Journeys, something like that. It's on Amazon Prime, and it's this older couple. They're both famous actor and actress from Great Britain. And for decades, they have loved taking canal boat trips with their families. Apparently, this is like a really popular pastime in England because they've restored many of their old canals. And in the show, some of the canals they mention were actually built during the Regency period, during the Napoleonic Wars, where they wanted to be able to move ships without going out onto the coastline where it'd be dangerous. They wanted to move them inland. Anyway, the Regency era just starts popping up everywhere once you look for it. Another option, I know I have too many options. This is what my TBR was like last year, and I think it was actually really nice, because then I could start on one thing, and if it wasn't grabbing me, I could put it down and try something else, and maybe that would grab me. This I know I will like if I have time to read it. Jane Austen's letters I absolutely adore, and it is fun to just kind of dip into them and read one or two from a certain different parts of her life. This is a really great passage where she is essentially giving us some recommendations. She's telling her sister sister, Cassandra, about the books that have just arrived at Chawton. We quite run over with books. She, I think she means her mother, has got Sir John Carr's Travels in Spain from Miss B, and I am reading a Society Octavo, an essay on the military police and institutions of the British Empire by Captain Passley of the Engineers, a book which I protested against at first, but which upon trial I find delightfully written and highly entertaining. I am as much in love with the author as I ever was with Clarkson or Buchanan, or even the two Mr. Smiths of the city. The first soldier I ever sighed for, but he does write with extraordinary force and spirit. I'm kind of tempted to try to find this essay on the military police. But then they had a collection of letters arrive as well. Yesterday, moreover, brought us Mrs. Grant's letters with Mr. White's compliments, but I have disposed of them, compliments and all, for the first fortnight to Miss Papillon. And among so many readers or retainers of books as we have in Chawton, I dare say there will be no difficulty in getting rid of them for another fortnight if necessary. So I suppose that's not a very glowing review or recommendation of that collection if she was trying to get rid of it. But anyway, lots and lots of options. And then I suppose I don't really need a book for the Austen-inspired prompt because almost all the works already on my TBR are basically Austen-inspired. But I'll definitely be reading Evelina, of course, for our group read. We're going to be doing a book club discussion of that on February 25th. And then I'd really love to read another Mariah Edgeworth. Years ago, I read Belinda, and I thought it was wonderful. Jane Austen famously compliments Mariah Edgeworth. And I think Mariah Edgeworth also read Austen and enjoyed some of her books. Last year, I did read Castle Rackrent for Febregency, which I think is the first book Mariah Edgeworth ever wrote. And it's written in sort of Irish dialect from the perspective of an Irish steward to this family who are pretty horrible. Mariah Edgeworth definitely writes about the plight of the Irish people. It was quite quick. It was good, although it didn't have Mariah Edgeworth's own voice, which I remember loving from Belinda. So I'd like to try another Mariah Edgeworth to try to get her own voice again. And I'm thinking I will try an audiobook. I saw that there was one on LibriVox of The Absentee. And that also deals with Irish landlords, Irish gentry. So I think that would be really interesting. Last year I did an audiobook of Camilla, which I did get a fair ways in. Camilla is so chunky, and I think I got like a third, maybe half of the way through, and I made the mistake of looking up the ending because I was like, where are all these guys going? It seems like it's just one misunderstanding after the next, and it was just one misunderstanding after the next. Although I would like to finish it. I shouldn't have let myself look up the ending, I guess. I think it'll be fun to kind of have a fresh start with Frances Burney this year and Evelina. And I do have a lovely Penguin English Library copy of that. So I'll read the physical version of that. Those are my Febregency plans for the moment. February is, of course, still a ways away. So we'll see if I end up changing my TBR between now and then. For now, I'm going to pour myself a fresh cup of tea and make some progress in The Hobbit. I've been doing some winter gardening this month. I got those paper whites planted. They look like they're ready to bloom. Also, I have a little hyacinth bulb, which I bought as a flowering plant last January, and then I kind of tossed the bulb at the back of the garden cupboard and forgot about it. I found it a month ago. It was sprouting, so I potted it, and now it is coming along beautifully. My peace lily, as you can see there, is also defying the season and blooming nicely. Also this month, I have been breaking in my new Jane Austen engagement calendar. I have all these adorable stickers from this Japanese cat-themed stationery subscription called Neko Neko Post. So I thought I would put them to good use and use them to decorate the pages of my January planner. One date which you can add to your planner if you like for Febregency, I forgot to mention this in my announcement video, but we're going to be doing live reading sprints to kick off the readathon. Those are going to be on Jennifer Brooks's channel on Saturday, February 4th, so the first Saturday of the month. I shared my February reading plans in this video, but my January TBR I actually need to sit down and give some more thought to. Lately I've been wanting to reread Laura Ingalls Wilder's Little House on the Prairie series, and I thought it would be really cozy to read Little House in the Big Woods during the winter time, but I can't find it. I have all the others on my shelves except Little House in the Big Woods, so I need to track that down. It could be a very Tolkien month because in addition to The Hobbit, I actually borrowed this copy of Tolkien's translation of Sir Gawain, I hope I'm saying that correctly, and the Green Knight. Although what I need to be borrowing a book for, I don't know, because I also have all my lovely Christmas presents. I have to decide which of those to dive into. In addition to reading, writing, and illustrating is on my January to-do list because I'm hoping to make some progress in the second installment of the Book of Symbolism. I've made a start, but I'm hoping to get that out early in 2023, so I need to buckle down. Here's a quick clip of Cymbeline enjoying her Christmas present, which was an adorable little gnome Christmas cat house, which she loves but has also already destroyed. I hope you all are having a great start to your January. I'm thinking that next Monday's video might be another Disney World vlog from our trip last summer. It's always really fun in the middle of winter when it's cold to look back on a fun summer trip. So look forward to that. Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you've been up to. I'll talk to you again soon, and until then, stay bookish. Bye guys.